Hello everyone. Today class 3 Physical and social environment as factors of crop distribution and production. Introduction. Man's agricultural activities depend on the physical environment in which he lives. Although he often has tried to minimize the restrictions imposed by natural conditions, has rightly put forward the theory that special field of geography concerns itself with the study of the influence of natural environment on the nature and distribution of men's activity. Physical environment plays a very important role in agriculture, and it includes relief, drainage, climate, soil, and water resources. All these factors are affecting the growth and distribution of crops in a particular area. Physical factors. Climate. Climatic factors include temperature. Most plants cannot grow if the temperature falls below 6 degrees centigrade or the soil is frozen for 5 consecutive months. Therefore, many areas are unsuitable for crop cultivation. In the growing season, the number of days between the last frost of the spring and the first of the autumn. Different crops require different lengths of growing seasons. Altitude. This affects the temperature, so it also affects farming. When temperatures are consistently high with sufficient precipitation, high yield crops such as rice can be grown. These have the added advantage of producing up to 3 crops a year. Next, rainfall. Water is obviously a key factor in plant growth. Rice is a principal crop in the tropics because it requires substantial quantities of water, is an extremely high yield crop, and has good nutritional value. With the addition of consistently high temperatures, it can also produce 2 or 3 crops a year. Wind can have a destructive effect on crops. At its most severe, a hurricane can physically destroy thousands of acres of farmland. Less severe but also harmful as the wind that dries soils, so reducing moisture and increasing the potential for soil erosion. Next, B. Soil. Soil type will influence crop cultivation because different crops prefer different soils. Clay soils with their high water retention are well suited to rice, while sandy soil with good drainage are good for root vegetables. Soil type can be influenced through the input of lime, clay, or fertilizer, but this can only make limited differences. Next, slope. The angle of slope will affect the type, depth, and moisture content of soil. It will also affect the rate of soil erosion. The need to cultivate such steep slopes is a consequence of population pressure and very small farms due generations of subdividing amongst sons. Social environment as factor. Land tenure. In the developed world, a large percentage of farmers are owner occupiers. Consequently, they have large incentive to become more efficient and improve land and buildings. The extent of their investment and success will depend on the marketplace and political systems. In the developing world, farmers are less likely to be owner occupiers. Instead, they will probably be tenants or landless laborers. Next, market. For any commercial farm to succeed, there must be demand. If the demand for the crop drops, then profit will fall. That crop will then be replaced by a more profitable one. Conditions in the marketplace can be a consequence of numerous factors. Changes in society. The move towards vegetarianism or panic about beef health Reasons increased demand for olive oil or panic about beef. Health scares, the BSc crisis or panic about beef. Religion, Jews do not eat pork. Marketing, campaign promoting products such as new breakfast cereals. Transport, transport is an important factor in determining location of farm types. If a product is bulky, such as potatoes, then it should be grown close to the marketplace to cut down on transport costs. If the good is perishable, then again it should be grown close to the marketplace. Capital. In a developed world, there is a well-established system of supportive banks, private investors, and government subsidies. This means that agriculture is likely to be a capital intensive and highly mechanized. Cereals growing and dairy farming are good examples. In the developing world, these systems of capital support are less developed. In addition, farmers have little capital of their own. Borrowing is difficult, especially with the small farms typical of many subsistence farmers, and incurs high interest rates. Therefore, the farm will be very labor intensive. If a farmer has little capital reserve, then certain types of farming are not an option. Technology. New technology is always increasing efficiency and yields, but technology costs money. Therefore, the gap between the developed and developing world is growing. The one exception is the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution spread throughout much of the developing world, and these new high yield crops, particularly rice, became a common feature of agriculture. They did increase the need for irrigation and agrochemicals that were too costly for small farmers, and larger farmers with more financial backing gained the most benefit from these crops. Although there were improvements in quality of life for the poorer farmer. Government. Government policies will have a direct or indirect effect on the prevalent agriculture system. With a five-fold increase in food grain production from 50 million tons in 1950 to 51 to about 250 million tons in 2014 to 15. India has moved away from dependence on food aid to become a net food exporter. In 2016, the government launched a number of programs to double farmers' income by 2022. These seek to remove the bottlenecks for greater agriculture productivity, especially in rain-fed areas. They include National Food Security Mission, Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, integrated schemes on oilseed, pulses, palm oil, and maize, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, the e-marketplace, as well as a massive irrigation and soil and water harvesting program to increase the country's gross irrigated area from 90 million hectares to 103 million hectares by 2017. The government has also taken significant steps to combat under and malnutrition over the past 2 decades, such as through the introduction of midday meals at schools, Angadwadi systems to provide rations to pregnant and lactating mothers, and subsidized grains for those living below the poverty line through a public distribution system. The National Food Security Act 2013 aims to ensure food and nutrition security for the most vulnerable through its associated schemes and programs, making access to a food a legal right. Physiographic factors. Topography is the nature of surface earth is known as topography. Topographic factors affect the crop growth indirectly. Altitude. Increase in altitude causes a decrease in temperature and increase in precipitation and wind velocity. Steepness of slope. It results in runoff rainwater, and loss of nutrient-rich topsoil. Exposure to light and wind. A mountain slope exposed to low intensity of light and strong day winds may cause results in poor crop yields. Socio-economic factors. Society inclination to farming and members available for cultivation. Appropriate choice of crops by human beings to satisfy the food and fodder requirement of farm household. Breeding varieties by human invention for increased yield or pest disease resistance. The economic conditions of the farmers greatly decides the input or resource mobilizing ability. Environmental factors influencing crop growth. Environmental factors which affect the plant growth can be classified as abiotic factors and biotic factors. Abiotic factors. Abiotic factors that affect plant growth and development include topography, soil, and climatic factors. They are the non-living components of the environment which, along with the biotic factors, determine the extent to which the genetic factors is expressed in the plant. Topography. Topography is a non-living or abiotic factor that refers to the lay of the land. It includes the physical features of the earth such as the land elevation, slope, terrain, mountain ranges, and bodies of water. Steepness. The steepness of a slope affects plant growth through differential incidence of solar radiation, wind velocity, and soil type. The altitude or elevation of the land with respect to the level of the sea surface influences plant growth and development primarily through temperature effect. Next, soil. Soil is the outermost layer of the surface of the earth in which plant grows. It is composed of eroded rock, mineral nutrients, decaying plant and animal matter, water, and air. This abiotic factor is likewise important in crop farming and is treated under the heading Soil and Climatic Adaptation or Requirement of Crop. Most plants are terrestrial in that they are anchored to the soil through their roots with which they absorb water and nutrients. Next, climate. The climatic factors which affect plant growth include humidity. Humidity, also referred to as relative humidity, is the amount of water vapor in the air at a given temperature and is expressed as percentage. The ideal relative humidity for propagation ranges between 80% and 95% for seeds and cuttings, and in the region of 60% outdoors for budding, grafting, and seedbed methods. Seed germination is faster at higher humidity levels, as is the case of cuttings. Aeration. Plants can only grow and survive in a balanced environment where both oxygen and carbon dioxide are sufficient. The process of respiration and photosynthesis make use of both oxygen and carbon dioxide to sustain the growth and development of plant. Light. All green plants require light for growth to take place. Some plants prefer growing in direct sunlight where others prefer growing in the shade where they are subjected to indirect sunlight. Light is essential for photosynthesis, while light quality, which is determined by the wavelength of light, also influences germination and flowering. If the heat and light which cause an increase in temperature is not controlled properly, plant may suffer from heat injury. The ideal temperature for propagation is 29 degrees centigrade and it must be monitored closely. Moisture. Moisture is essential for germination and healthy plant growth. Too much water suffocates the plant root and can cause diseases such as root rot, damping off, and collar rot. The other extreme is insufficient water supply or drought and is detrimental to all plants, but even more so to cutting and young seedlings. A uniform and constant water supply is required for seed germination to produce healthy and vigorous seedlings, and for seedlings to grow into a healthy plant. Now, biotic factors. The effect of these biotic factors on plant expression may be advantageous or disadvantageous depending on how they interact with the plant. These interactions include mutualisms, herbivory, parasitism, and allelopathy. Mutualism is a species to species interaction in which both the biotic factors and the plant are benefited by the relationship. Examples of beneficial influence of biotic factors on plant growth and development through mutualisms are the symbiotic relationship of the rhizobium bacteria and leguminous crop plants. The rhizobia live in the roots of the legume and obtain their supply of energy from the host plant. In exchange, the rhizobia fix atmospheric nitrogen and supply it to the plant in observable form. Nitrogen is an essential macronutrient for plant nitrogen fixing nodules formed by rhizobium in legumes. Next, forest and fruit trees and other plants including annual crops associate with mycorrhizal fungi which aid in the absorption of water and nutrients such as phosphorus and zinc from the soil. Next, birds, insects and bats serve as vectors of pollination. The transfer of pollens from an anther to a stigma, which is a precondition for the development of fruits and seeds from the flowers in the angiosperms. As a reward, the pollinators feed on the nectar that the flower secretes or obtain from other benefit from the plant. Herbivory. In herbivory, plant-eating organisms called herbivores, such as ruminant animals, rodents, insects, and molluscs, feeds on plant parts. Herbivores with significant deleterious effects on crop growth and yield are called pests. Damage caused by these biotic factors are varied, such as death of the entire plant or organs, reduced root, stem, leaf, or inflorescence mass, total defoliation, bores, and holes on plant parts, and other marks of feeding. Parasitism. Parasitism is an interaction between two organisms in which one organism, called parasite, is benefited but causes harm to another, called host. The parasite steals its food from the host. Microorganisms such as fungi, bacteria, and virus injure crops by causing diseases and are called pathogens. Examples of parasitic plants are the loranthus, cascata, and other some orchards. Adoption and distribution of crops. Adoption. Adoption may be defined as any feature of an organism which has survival value under the existing condition of its habitat. Such future may allow the plants to make fuller use of nutrients, water, temperature, or light available, or may give protection against adverse factors such as temperature extremes, harmful insects, and diseases. Adoption may be morphological or physiological. Morphological adaptation, such as growth, habit, strength of stalk, radial symmetry, or rhizomes. Physiological adaptation, which results in resistance to parasites, greater ability to compete for nutrients, or ability to withstand desiccation. However, both morphological and physiological adaptations represents the expression of physiological processes. Next, principles of plant distribution. Environmental factors are highly influenced in determining the natural distribution of plants. There are 8 principles of plant distribution. Evolution. Climatic factors like light, temperature, moisture, wind. Edaphic factors like soil, parent material, physiography. Dispersal of flora. Plant migrations. Climatic variations or change. Relative distributions of land and sea, and it exerts a high degree of control over distribution of flora. Biotic factors like obligate insect pollination, seed dissemination by animals, and grazing by livestock directly influence the plant distribution. Theories governing crop adaptation and distribution. Theory of tolerance. Law of tolerance. A law stating that the abundance or distribution of an organism can be controlled by certain factors. Example, the climatic, topographic, biological requirements of plants and animals, where levels of these exceed the maximum or minimum limits of tolerance of that organism. Each plant or living organism is able to thrive well in certain climatic conditions below which and above which the plant can't grow, that is, it requires optimum climatic conditions. Temperature is one of the most environmental factor common limiting in plant. Law of tolerance distribution. Many tropical crops such as rubber, cocoa, banana will not withstand freezing temperature. In this, rubber probably has the narrowest tolerance range, banana the widest range for temperate tolerance. Theory of avoidance. It may be accomplished through the rapid completion of the life cycle, as in ephemerals, dormancy in seeds to avoid effects of the hottest and driest periods, dormancy in vegetative pods or roots of all the perennial water accumulations in succulents and extremely deep root systems to avoid moisture deficiency. Theory of factors replaceability. One factor that can be replaced by another or substituted by another. For example, elevation can be substituted for latitude because of its temperature effects. The climatic conditions at the latitudes of 35 to 45 degrees resembles to that of the tropical regions at the elevation of 4000 to 6000 feet. The angle of direction of slope may be substituted for latitude. This is also a temperature adjustment depending on the angle of exposure to solar radiation, wind, etc. Parent materials may compensate for climate. Rainfall may be replaced by fog and to some extent by dew. Soil texture may be substituted for moisture. Influence of climate on crop production and distribution. Climate is the most important dominating factor influencing the suitability of the crop to a particular region. The yield potential of the crop mainly depends on climate. More than 50% of variations of crops is determined by climate. The most important climatic factor that influence growth, development and yield of crops are solar radiation, temperature and rainfall. Effect of temperature on plant growth, temperature and crop production. Importance of growth and development. Optimum temperature is required for maximum dry matter accumulation. High night temperature, growth of shoot. Cardinal temperature. All plants have maximum, optimum and minimum temperature limits. The limits are cardinal temperature points. Optimum temperature range is very high. Regardless of how favorable light and moisture conditions may be, plants grow ceases when the air and the leaf temperature drop below a certain minimum or exceeds a certain minimum value. Between these limits, there is an optimum temperature at which growth proceeds with greatest rapidity. These Three temperature points are the cardinal temperatures for a given plant. The cardinal temperatures are known for most plant species, at least approximately. Low temperature. Low temperature affects several aspects of a crop growth, survival, cell division, photosynthesis, water transport, growth, and finally yield. Chilling injury. If the plant grows in hot temperature or exposed to low temperature, they will be killed or severely injured. When the night temperature is below 15 degrees centigrade, field crops may show yellowing symptoms. Example, tropical annuals. Freezing injury. When the plants are exposed to low temperature, water freezes injury into ice crystals in the intercellular spaces. Cell dehydration. Temperate crops. Next, suffocation. Formation of thick cover of ice, snow on the soil surface prevents the entry of oxygen and crop suffers. This prevents the respiration and the lead to accumulation of harmful substances. Heaving. Lifting of plants along with the soil from its actual position by ice crystals. This is a mechanical lifting. Frost damage. Low temperature near the canopy due to the Earth's radiation. If the cell size is large, the probability of frost damage is high. Plant management against frost damage. First, frost-free growing season, adjusting the sowing time, selection of resistant varieties, sprinkler irrigation. High temperature injuries. High temperature adversely affects the mineral nutrition, shoot growth, and pollen development, resulting in low yield. The critical temperature above which plants get killed is called the thermal death point. The temperature above 50 degrees centigrade may kill many annual crops. The limit varies with plants. Shade-loving plants are killed at lower temperature. Mineral nutrition. High temperature stress causes reduction in absorption and subsequent assimilation of nutrients. Absorption of calcium is reduced at temperature of 28 degrees centigrade in maize. Nutrient uptake is affected by both soil and air temperature in rice. Nitrate reductase activity decrease under high temperature. Shoot growth. High temperature, even for short period, affects crop growth, especially in temperate crops like wheat. High air temperature reduces the growth of shoots and in turn reduces root growth. High soil temperature is more crucial as damage to the roots is severe, resulting in substantial reduction in shoot growth. High temperature at 38 degrees centigrade in rice reduce plant height, root elongation, and shoot smaller roots. Pollen development. High temperature during brooding stage results in pollen abortion. In weeds, temperature higher than 27 degrees caused underdevelopment of anthers and loss of viability of pollen. A temperature of 30 degrees centigrade for 2 days at reduction division stage decreased grain yield by drastic reduction in grain set. Scorching. High temperature leads to dehydration and leaves are scorched. Physiological activities. High temperature disturbs the photosynthesis and respiration. Injury to scorching sun. High temperature causes injury on the exposed area of the plant. Barks. Example, barks. It is known as sun scald. Burning off. The symptoms are noticed on young seedlings due to high soil temperature. The seedlings are killed. Stem griddle. High soil temperatures causes stem scorches, at the ground level, example cotton. Thank you.